Donald Trump just staged an entire photo op to brag about an article that he apparently did not read, because the article says Joe Biden deserves the credit. Look at this. Donald Trump walked up to reporters holding a printout. And in that printout, you can see that there is an article. And the article is of a Washington Post story. And the headline is Prescription Drug Prices Record Sharpest Drop in More Than 60 Years. And Donald Trump had it printed out by his human printer, Natalie Harp. He proudly displayed it. He asked reporters, hey, have you seen that? He made sure that the cameras would capture it. And he read aloud the headline and declared, I told you that this was going to happen. And then the White House took the image and blasted it all over social media with the caption, POV, you bring the receipts. Trump taking credit. But there was only one little problem. And this is why we read the articles. This is why we don't just stop with the headlines. This is why we don't allow Donald Trump and people like him to bamboozle us with printouts. The receipt says it is thanks to Joe Biden. Had Donald Trump been able to read, or had anybody working in the White House communications operation bothered to read the article, they would have noticed that the article is talking about a Biden era policy as the explanation for the drop in prescription drug prices. You look at the article that Trump is bragging about, and it says there is a policy in the Inflation Reduction Act, of course, signed by President Biden back in 22. And what it did was give Medicare the authority to negotiate prices for a bunch of expensive and widely used prescription drugs. And we covered this extensively. We gave you the list of the first drugs that were being negotiated, the most commonly used drugs, most commonly prescribed drugs in the United States. And these first negotiated prices, which happened thanks to a Biden law and which were negotiated mostly while Biden was president, took effect at the start of this year. And so we now find a situation where even though the prices of almost everything are up under Donald Trump, prescription drug prices were down about 3% compared to a year earlier. And it is true. That's the steepest decline in a single year in more than 6 decades. The only problem for Trump is that Biden's Medicare negotiations are the reason why those prices are down. It's not because of anything Donald Trump did. Now, this doesn't prove that every single penny of the decline is because of Joe Biden's law. It is, of course, the case that drug pricing is complex. Several forces can affect the numbers. But Trump wasn't making a nuanced argument about competing economic variables and complexity. He was waving around an article going, look, it's proof that I did it. But if you go and you read the article, which we're linking to, it says, well, the bulk of this is because of Joe Biden's policy, a policy which Trump and MAGA and Republicans said was a bad idea, the Inflation Reduction Act. It is difficult to imagine a more perfect encapsulation of Donald Trump. He sees a flattering headline and he stops reading, if he is even the one reading the headline, maybe somebody is reading it to him. And he assumes it's got to be about me. And so his staff goes and they turn it into propaganda. They post it everywhere on the White House accounts. And nobody stops for a second to go, wait a second, our source contradicts the claim. The article says it's because of Biden. So it's not that Trump failed to disprove the Biden argument. He carried the Biden argument to the cameras and held it up and said, you have to take a picture of this. Look at this. And when you look at it, you see that it says this is thanks to Joe Biden. Now, there is sort of a deeper irony here, which is that Republicans spent years attacking the Inflation Reduction Act. And one of Trump's priorities, in addition to dismantling everything that Barack Obama did as president, is dismantling the legacy of Joe Biden. It's one of sort of the organizing principles of Trump's second term is we have to undo as much as we can of Joe Biden's legacy. In this case, a Biden policy gave Trump something he wanted to brag about. So now he goes, it was all me. I'm the one who did it. And this is how the Trump operation of disinformation works. The headline is the story, you brag, and the image is circulated, and there is no context. And I guess they don't assume that supporters of Trump are going to read any further, and they're probably right. But it is wild that Trump is bringing us the evidence that it's thanks to Biden. He walks onto the tarmac and proudly holds it up and goes, look at what I did. What else do I have to say? This is it. This is the proof. And the truth is, Trump doesn't have to say anything else. He pointed us to the article. We looked at the article, and it was thanks to Joe Biden that this took place. Now, I think that this is a bigger story also about voting. What I mean by that is one of the things that really influences who people choose to vote for is who they believe is responsible for different things. And so there was this unfortunate situation after Obamacare in 2010 where I'll just quickly remind you, Obamacare included a provision for expanding Medicaid, but it required governors to say, yes, we're going to do it. And there were a bunch of people in red states when Obamacare was passed who did not see the Medicaid expansion because their governors said, we're not going to do it. And when it came time to vote in 2012 and it was time to choose between Mitt Romney and Barack Obama, a lot of these voters who should have been blaming their governor said, well, I'm voting for Romney over Obama because Obama supposedly did Obamacare, but it didn't help me. And a big part of that reason was their Republican governor, not the Democratic president in Washington, D.C., who got Obamacare passed. It was the Republican governor who said, we're going to opt out of that Medicaid expansion. So who voters believe is responsible for things has a massive effect on how people vote. And it is another reason why it is really crucial that we get these stories out there. And what is now, I guess it must be about 85 days, I guess, roughly, until these midterms, because not everything is about blame and credit. But when it comes to how are you going to vote, for a lot of voters, it is about who do I believe is responsible for the status quo. And for the most part, we have seen a promise about all your prices are going to go down and affordability is going to be great that have been made by Donald Trump. For the most part, those promises have failed. Energy prices are up, housing prices are up, groceries are up, cost of living is up in general. We have this narrow decline in pharmaceutical prices, and they want credit for it. But that's the exception that proves the rule. Just about everything Trump has done is raised prices. But the one area where we're seeing prices decline is because of the Inflation Reduction Act and Medicare negotiations on prescription drugs put in place by Joe Biden, mostly negotiated by the Biden administration. This matters. People vote on this stuff. And so we are going to keep covering it, even if the White House would rather no one find out why this is actually taking place. Appreciate you watching. Stick around for this next video and don't forget to hit subscribe so you actually see our uploads. You can also catch the full podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.